Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 9th of September 2021. Alright everyone, let's get right into it. So, you may have missed it. I know Twitter's been crazy lately. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff to talk about today actually. But in case you missed it, Gitcoin Grants Matching Round 11 is now live. So, same as every other matching round, you can go to the grants page here and donate to all of your favorite projects. There is $950,000 worth of matching funds up for grabs, and this runs until September 22nd, so you have about 2 weeks from today. Of course, I appreciate all donations to the Daily Gwei and ETH Hub, and all the Daily Gwei kind of like sister communities, the Spanish and French translations that are also on here. And I've also got my Sasso's Card of Love, which has 45 grants in it that I usually donate to each round. I'm probably going to update that and add some new ones in there because I'm sure there's new ones, but there's other kind of collections you can look at here as well. But yeah, I guess just a reminder to go donate to all of your favorite projects so that they get matching. You know, $950,000 is a lot of money. And the way the matching works is it works quadratically, as I've explained on the review, I guess, in the last rounds. But essentially, your funds are kind of like, if you donate like $1 or $10 or whatever, it's matched by a larger and larger amount depending on how many kind of unique donations have happened to that kind of like grant. And these kind of like matching funds are split between well, it seems like there's a lot more this round, like 9 different categories here. So infrastructure, dapps, community, NFTs, decentralized governance, Africa, Uniswap, retroactive funding, and Latin America. So that's pretty cool to see as well. So yeah, the Daily Gwei and ETH Hub and stuff are in the community kind of category here, but definitely try and go through all of them and pick one that you like from each of them or one or more and kind of like donate to them there. But yeah, really cool to see that round 11 is live, and we'll have to see kind of like if we you know, how much is actually donated, because obviously $950,000 of matching funds is going to these grants regardless. But I always like looking at how much is donated just by people, you know, outside of the matching round. So yeah, if you haven't done so yet, definitely go do it. You got 2 weeks. I'll be periodically reminding you to go get your donations on because it's very important. It's a part of being in Ethereum for sure, something I truly believe, and I'll definitely be kind of doing my donations very soon and kind of giving back after, I guess, the last few months that we've seen in the crypto ecosystem. It's been I guess, a great time to be in crypto on the I guess, like money investing side. So giving back is always really nice, a really nice thing to do. All right, so there's a lot of talk lately about, I mean, not just lately, it's been going on for a while, about like scalability, how Ethereum's going to scale, the fact that like layer 2 chains are never going to be as cheap as like some of these more, I guess, like, I don't know, you can call them centralized kind of like scalable chains where they basically say, you know, the fees are basically zero here, you know, come to us and basically do everything you want on here with these like super low fees. And DCInvestor put out a really great tweet around this today where he says, time to face facts, Ethereum friends. Ethereum can never remain the cheapest or fastest chain, but neither can anything else, IMO. L2 will help, plus EVM sidechains. The value prop really is that ETH becomes metaverse money, on-chain programmable dollars for big DeFi with exceedingly valuable block space. And then he goes on to say, I expect people to dance around this for a while, imagining we can have near free transactions, but it isn't going to happen with Ethereum's decentralization trade-offs. We either lean into reality, building on Ethereum's unique value prop in the space, EIP 1559, a big step, or fade. And then he goes on and says, trying to remain a perma cheapest and perma fastest chain is a losing argument for this tech. Not possible to execute that degree of change quickly enough while preserving value built on top. This is also why I think being the cheapest fastest is not a durable value prop. All we can strive for is becoming relatively cheaper, faster to prior Ethereum performance. Some new chain will have will make a different decentralization trade-off, or new tech will and do it cheaper. This dynamic will eventually work against the cheap chains of today too, as they saturate. So there is a lot to unpack here, and I'm gonna go through this a bit by bit because I think it's very important. And then I'm gonna go through another thing that I saw a post from a user on Reddit called liberosist here. But first, I'm gonna start with DC's tweet. So I actually replied to this and I said, you know, I agree with most of what DC is saying here, but I would caution against saying things like never when it comes to Ethereum. And I say this because I think we have enough giga brains, as I like to call them, working on scaling that I'm confident that we can one day get to the point where Ethereum is super scalable while still being decentralized and secure. The scaling of these chains is just getting started. It may seem like we're kind of like, I don't know, much further along than what we are, but I'm telling you, like, we're still at kind of basically day zero when it comes to scaling these blockchains. You know, even the chains that kind of say, you know, they have like tens of thousands of TPS and all this sort of stuff, that is nowhere near enough for global scale. And then, okay, they say, oh, well, we'll increase the capacity, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But there are limits to this. And I'm not just talking about decentralization. I'm talking actual hard limits to how much scaling you can get. Have you ever been, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have seen what happens when, I guess, like popular social media sites get DDoSed, like go offline, or kind of like different data centers get DDoSed or whatever. There is a limit, and not just DDoS, like sometimes things go over capacity. Like how many times have you refreshed CoinGecko when the market's hot and CoinGecko says, sorry, we're over capacity, and they basically put you into a queue? Like, Web 2, a centralized web, can't even scale enough to meet demand, and it has all these kind of like different things that help it scale, like load balancing and stuff like that, but still, you still run into issues. So any chain that's promising to be like super scalable all the time and super cheap at the same time is long term, that's not going to be the case when they get kind of like more usage. So that's the first thing on this. But secondly, to DC's point here where he says Ethereum can never remain the cheapest or fastest chain, then he says neither can anything else. This is true, as I just said, for basically everything, because yes, some other chains have more capacity than Ethereum Layer 1. But on that note, I actually think Ethereum Layer 1, or like saying these other chains are competing with Ethereum Layer 1 is the wrong thing. They're competing with Ethereum Layer 2 if they're competing on scale. Like Layer 1 Ethereum is not going to be where we scale execution. It's going to be basically the settlement layer for the execution, which happens on Layer 2. And even with sharding, it's still just going to be data sharding for you know, probably forever, if not for a very long time, where it just enhances Layer 2. So from that perspective, Ethereum right now, it has incredible demand to use its block space, and that hasn't kind of gone down at all. And of course, that's pricing people out. Now, people are going to L2s on Ethereum, they're going to other chains, they're going to wherever they can get cheap transactions. And I actually think there's a sweet spot when it comes to transaction costs. I don't think that their transactions have to be incredibly cheap. I don't think they have to be kind of like 1/10 of a cent, like 0.001. I think a kind of like 10 cents for a kind of like decentralized exchange swap is really not unreasonable. I know it depends on where people live, and I know that it's going to be different depending on people's income and things like that, and we want to bring these costs down as much as possible for people in kind of like developing and third world countries. I totally understand that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't aim for that, but I think for the first world at least, anywhere from 10 cents to $1 fee for like a decentralized exchange swap or something like that is totally fine. I really don't think that there's a massive difference between 10 cents and a tenth of a cent for things like DeFi, for example. But then you can start talking about different use cases, right? You can talk about things that don't need Ethereum's like state level censorship resistance and security, things like crypto gaming, and a lot of the NFT stuff. Like not all of it, like the high value NFTs you obviously want to be on Ethereum, but a lot of the other kind of NFT stuff can be done on either a side chain or at a kind of like layer 2 that maybe makes trade-offs around security and decentralization by doing like data off-chain and things like that. So there's all these kind of different solutions, and this is why it's kind of like very much not a zero-sum game when it comes to Ethereum, other chains, layer 2, whatever, because every use case has its own kind of unique needs and its unique value prop. And at the end of the day, Ethereum will sit at the center of all of this. I truly believe it will, because it already is. If you think about everything bridging in and out of Ethereum, you think about how Ethereum block space is still at higher demand than it's ever been, and you know, the gas fees are high on layer 1 and all that, but we have these layer 2s taking on kind of users and offering them cheaper fees already, even though they're even not at capacity. Like Arbitrum and Optimism still have limits on them, like pretty hefty limits as well. Arbitrum, as it currently exists, is as scalable as L1, and the reason why the fees aren't as high is because they haven't hit the kind of like scaling limits of L1 just yet, but they're going to go and scale from there a lot more as well, right? Because their optimistic rollups can scale up to a few thousand transactions per second in their current state. I'm sure they're going to be able to scale more than that. zk rollups, I think a bit more than that, and then you got things like Validium and kind of things that put data off-chain that can potentially scale much more than that, and then you have like hybrid solutions. There's so many solutions out here. So when you think about kind of like, I guess, scaling, it's just such a broad thing. It's not a, oh, well, this chain can do everything, or this layer 2 can do everything, or, well, this is going to win, or, well, it's going to be basically a winner-take-all kind of situation. It's never going to be like that. There are different trade-offs, different kind of solutions for different values and use cases. And at the end of the day, all I want to see happen in the world, and why I kind of like follow the Ethereum ecosystem so closely and so involved with Ethereum, is that I just want Ethereum to remain at the heart of this. I want Ethereum to be the most maximally decentralized and secure chain at layer 1, and then I want everything else feeding into it, whether that being different kind of networks feeding into it, or layer 2 as well. And I want users to be able to experience the awesomeness of Ethereum's decentralization and security, while also getting cheap fees. That's why I'm always going on about layer 2. I think that's a lot of the context people miss when they kind of look at these other things and they're like, well, Ethereum's design is wrong. It's not about what design is wrong or right. It's just about a difference in design philosophy. I guess like Solana is one of the chains that are talked about a lot right now. Their design philosophy is that they think that they can scale everything on one layer, on layer 1 of their blockchain, without sharding. I don't think that's going to be the case. I do think that Solana is either going to have to add a layer 2 ecosystem onto their chain, or they're going to have to add sharding. Now, if they do that, to me, it's kind of like, well, why would I, what's the point of using Solana in that case when I could just use Ethereum and have the exact same experience? Because their argumentation is that, well, they believe that layer 2s and sidechains or whatever fragment liquidity, fragment user experience, and that's just a really poor user experience. And I kind of get that, but at the same time, I just don't agree with it. It's not that I don't think Solana is a legit project, or I think it's a scam. I don't think any of that. I just don't agree with the design philosophy. I think that Ethereum's design philosophy of keeping layer 1 as decentralized and secure as possible at the expense of high fees, right? But scaling via layer 2 is the proper approach. And yes, there are some trade-offs there around liquidity, fragmentation, and needing bridges and stuff like that. But that, I think, is fine. And as I've been going on about a lot, and I will probably go over this in a sec as well, I just think that it's fine that we have this kind of ecosystem. But at the end of the day, it's just two different design philosophies. But I just don't agree with we're going to do everything at layer 1 and we can scale to the whole world on one layer. That's actually the design philosophy of Solana specifically. They think that they can scale all of the demand that's coming, the infinite demand that is coming for these networks, on just one layer with no sharding and no layer 2 ecosystem. I don't buy that. I don't see how that can happen. They say, oh, hardware gets better all the time, we can just beef up the hardware. It's like, but it doesn't. Moore's law has diminishing returns. And on top of that, by beefing up the hardware, you sacrifice decentralization. So to me, it's that's kind of like what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at anything else. It's just really that and the design philosophies behind it. And that's okay. It's okay if people have different design philosophies. It's got nothing to do with, if you're a maximalist or not or whatever. Like, I hate being called an ETH maxi just because I don't believe that another chain's design philosophy is something that I want to follow. I'm in Ethereum and I'm so dedicated to Ethereum is because I'm bought into the ecosystem, that I'm bought into the vision, I'm bought into the Ethereum values, and that's what I want to see kind of like get adopted, and I want to see people kind of using. So at the end of the day, that doesn't mean that I don't think these other networks can get usage and can kind of like offer things to different people. And there's no world where I believe that people should be paying, the really expensive fees. That's not true at all. I want people to experience cheap fees, but I would also love to see them experience it at layer 2, and that's why I'm dedicated to helping Ethereum build out its layer 2 ecosystem. And that's where I'm focusing a lot of my time on, actually, whether that be just kind of like learning more about it, reading up on things, trying to help teams where I can, making some investments here and there, and getting kind of aligned and on calls with teams, because that's just the vision that I want to see at the end of the day. But anyway, this is a great thread from DCInvestor. There's a lot of great comments in here. Definitely go check it out. He's responded to a bunch of them and things like that, but definitely go check it out. And I guess I didn't even talk about zk rollups, which is the next thing I was going to kind of talk about, which was a post from liberosist. I hope I said it right. Where he put together this post where he says, "Why rollups plus data shards are the only sustainable solution for high scalability." The reason I love this post, and it's one of the best things that I've read in a very long time, and I highly recommend going and reading this. Of course, it'll be linked in the YouTube description. But the reason I love it so much is because he didn't go and didn't really talk about decentralization and the trade-off there. What he talked about was that he thinks that these kind of like super scalable L1 chains or whatever are going to hit their scaling limits. Just as I was describing that they were going to hit scaling limits, and the only way to have a technically sustainable system is through a rollup and data sharded kind of environment. And he explains why in this post. And I just wanted to highlight the post because I really think that everyone should read this. It is pretty much required reading at this point. He actually puts out a lot of great posts on Reddit, on ETH Finance, and stuff like that as well. So if you want to go sleuth through his Reddit account, you'll find a bunch of great posts and comments from him. But you know, the TLDR is basically that he kind of says that even these super scalable L1 chains are going to run into limits, as I was describing before, and they're not going to be able to scale without rollups, specifically zk rollups, and kind of like zero knowledge tech around that. And he used Solana as an example here, and BSC, and even things like the Polygon POS chain and stuff like that. They have. He doesn't say that they don't have their place, but they will run into limits. And that's how kind of like what I was describing before as well. So yeah, just go give this post a read. And yeah, another tweet I put out today where I basically said, I know that it's popular to hate Ethereum right now due to the high gas fees, but saying things like no one is using Ethereum anymore is just stupid, because it is stupid. I mean, obviously people are using Ethereum. It's like, the reason why the gas fees are high is because people are using it. Like, I don't know why people can say this. No one is using Ethereum anymore. It's just a really dumb narrative that I've seen perpetuated throughout the ecosystem. And I've just kind of been looking at this and being like, this is dumb, whatever. So I just put out this tweet. And, you know, as I said, the gas fees are high because demand to use the network is insane. Try out an L2 for cheaper fees. And I linked to my thread that I kind of put together a couple of weeks ago with all the L2s listed here, or at least most of them, and how you can get involved with them. This will, of course, be linked in the YouTube description for you to check out as well. Another great thread about L2s came from liitocoen here, where he basically broke down, you know, what swaps cost on each solution here. So you have $100 swaps on L1. Optimistic rollups give you $5 swaps right now. zk rollups give you 10 cents. I think it's a bit more than 10 cents, like maybe 20, 30, 40. I don't know what the current cost is, but these costs are going to come down as well, like on optimistic rollups and zk rollups. As I've described before, they work off economies of scale, but you can also get efficiency gains out of it. And then with sharding, these rollups are going to have more room to put their data on, or their core data on, so they're going to scale even more from there. And then liitocoen just has like a great thread here where he goes through different kind of things like the L2 beat metrics, how DYDX works, So Rare, which is a really popular NFT kind of platform that's built on Immutable X. Sorry, not built on Immutable X. It's built on its own kind of like rollup that's using Starkware's technology. And then you have kind of like Hot Protocol, which acts as a bridge and things like that. So, I mean, go check out this thread. But yeah, I mean, this is just another kind of like highlight of the L2 ecosystem, which I thought was really important to cover. Another thing, I guess maybe I should cover this first. Another thing is this tweet from Jeremy Guzmán, who says, not enough attention is being given to Mir protocol's execution environment developments. The fact that we very well may be able to interact with AMMs like Compound and Aave without compromising data availability via snark utilization is mind-boggling. Now, if you didn't understand what that means, don't worry. I'm not going to claim to understand exactly what that means either, but essentially, he links to the post here, blog post from Mir Protocol, which you can go and read. You may not have heard of Mir before. I had heard of them a couple of times, but they're very heavy in research and development right now. I don't think they have anything live just yet. But essentially, the TLDR of this blog post is that Mir is designed to support applications that developers can build on Ethereum, but in an execution environment where transactions are validated with zero-knowledge proof. So essentially, a ZK kind of like roll-up, or basically an off-chain kind of like ZK system here, which obviously is super exciting. But essentially, the way I kind of like understand how this kind of like works is that they're trying to achieve scale without compromising on that data availability, which is what I've described before about how there's different ways to do data availability, where you can put it on layer 1 Ethereum, or you can do it off chain to achieve greater scale. So yeah, if you want to learn about how they're kind of like doing that, definitely go check out this blog post. I mean, I think it's quite technical. It's on my reading list for sure. But I think it's just great to read through these things and understand kind of like where the future of Ethereum scaling is going, because definitely it's a zero knowledge world and we're all just living in it. So on that note as well, Loopring just reminded everyone today that their blog post about their DAMM, or distributed AMM, that they were working in collaboration with Starkware on, is available for you to read. So I've spoken about the DAMM before, which is basically a cross L2 AMM that shares liquidity across layers, and it also allows people to do L1 to L2 kind of like cross-chain stuff there as well. So definitely go check out this blog post if you haven't already. NiftyTable here put together a great tweet thread on the Polygon POS chain where he said OpenSea launched a marketplace on Polygon's POS chain where users can benefit from lower gas fees and faster transaction times. And here are 5 key insights. So the volume was actually 51.7 million, which is an all-time high for the platform in August. Obviously, compared to Ethereum mainnet, that's a lot less. The mainnet was like $3.3 billion. But there's 190,000 wallets that have bought or sold an NFT on OpenSea. So that's, I think about half of what's happened on Ethereum Layer 1. And 5% of the wallets that have traded on Polygon's OpenSea have also traded on OpenSea on Ethereum mainnet, which means that 85.5% have only transacted on Polygon. OpenSea. And I think I read a stat somewhere, maybe here, that, the NFT sales in August, 77% of the NFT sales on Polygon's POS chain on OpenSea in August were for less than $100. So you can see here that that Polygon's POS chain is acting as kind of like a scaling, release valve for NFTs for Ethereum, where people who only have like $100 or less to kind of like play with are using the POS chain instead of ETH layer 1, because you're not going to really get an NFT for $100 or less, or maybe about anywhere between $50 and $100 in gas fees, right? It's just pretty crazy. So really, really cool to see that. And finally, I think on the layer 2 front, so Argent kind of like recap their layer 2 plans. Apparently their layer 2 wallet is coming in the next few weeks with support for Aave, Lido, Indexed Finance, Yearn, Paraswap, ZK, and Ramp Network are utilizing ZK Sync. So this is a recap blog post on their plans and how they plan to kind of like do everything here. So definitely go check this out. It'll be linked in the YouTube description. Polymarket has introduced an NFT floor price markets on their Polymarket system. So now you can go long or short on the floor price of CryptoPunks, Blipmaps, Bored Ape, Yacht Club, and Loot. So essentially you can profit without owning the NFT, no minimum or limits, only 0.1% a trading fee. This is really cool because essentially if you want to get exposure to like the floor price of these NFTs, but you don't want to have to buy them and you want to just go short or long, you can do it through Polymarket's kind of like, prediction market platform here, which is really awesome. So definitely go check out this. It'll be linked in the YouTube description, of course. The probably one of the biggest pieces of news from the last 24 hours was that Rocket Pool announced their mainnet date. So for those who don't know, Rocket Pool aims to be a decentralized Ethereum 2.0 staking pool, and their launch date is going to be October 6th. So they're launching with a bunch of Oracle DAO members here, which if I scroll down, or if Medium wants to load for me, if I scroll down to kind of like the bottom here, you can kind of see who the launch members are. So Lighthouse, Nimbus, and Prism from the ETH2 client teams, Etherscan, Beacon Chain, Consensus, Blockdaemon, Staked, Blockchain Capital, Bankless, Superfizz / ETH Stakers, FireEye, Crypto Manufacturer, and Rocket Pool, of course. So there's a lot of great DAO members here as part of the Oracle DAO. And this post, one thing I really love about Rocket Pool's kind of posts is that they go into great detail about everything. It's not just a kind of like 2-paragraph thing. They're actually going into detail about what's happening. And they have, different kind of like links to different parts as well on the whole protocol and kind of like reading about it there. But essentially kind of like how they're moving into mainnet staking, how this is all going to work, and how node operators are going to work, and how you can get involved. So if you don't have that 32 ETH kind of like minimum limit, but you want to be part of a decentralized staking network, then Rocket Pool is definitely for you. So I'm really glad to see that they finally have a mainnet launch date here. It's not too far away, about less than a month now, October 6th, right? It's September 9th today. So really, really great to see them announce this. But definitely go check out this blog post. Another really good blog post from Dmitriy here, who's a research partner at 1KX, basically talking about blockchain bridges. So this is something that I have been speaking about a lot lately on the Refuel, but I didn't know that there were over 100, there are over 100 public blockchains and over 40 bridge projects today. So what Dmitriy does is he goes through all the kind of bridges here, not just the bridges that I usually talk about, like Connext and Hop and things like that. He also talks about the different bridges between chains, the different bridges on these different chains, in their own little ecosystem. It kind of like maps it out really nicely here, I believe, where he basically kind of like splits them up into different ecosystems. Like you have the Cosmos, Ethereum, Polkadot ecosystem, and then you have like bridges between those ecosystems, then you have bridges like around them and on top of them, and all this stuff going on. It's just crazy. But this is a really lengthy blog post, a 12-minute read. It was a great read today. I loved going through it. I loved seeing how he categorized everything and how he kind of like went through the different security and kind of like liquidity and everything like that. Definitely recommend, highly recommend going and giving this a read if you want to learn about all the bridges, cross-chain, decentralized exchanges, all that stuff happening. It's a really, really awesome kind of like field. I think it's only going to get more important as time goes on as well. So the UltraSoundMoney account tweeted out that we had actually had our first kind of ultrasound day, I think here, because we burned more than, so we had 2 of these days on September 8th and September 9th, where we burned more than proof of work and the proof of stake issuance put together. So you know how the other day on the refuel I described that we had an ultrasound day, but if we counted for proof of stake issuance, we didn't. We only had it with proof of work issuance. But now with kind of like these 2 days in a row here, we've had it for both. So we've essentially burned more on each of these 2 days than we issued across ETH1 and ETH2, which is, you know, pretty cool to see, I guess. This is funny because like whenever I celebrate high fees on Ethereum's layer 1, I get attacked by like so many people. So I've stopped like kind of trying to do that on Twitter. I do kind of like celebrate the fee burning and stuff like that. But I mean, it's kind of like a silver lining that yes, okay, the fees are high on layer 1 and users are kind of getting priced out and moving to other chains and hopefully moving to L2s as well. But the silver lining is that this isn't just like totally negative on the ecosystem anymore. ETH holders are still kind of getting the benefit of this because they're being rewarded via burnt ETH, right? For example. So there's that kind of aspect to it, which I think more people kind of should try and pay attention to. But at the same time, I totally get it. I'm not trying to say that you guys should be spending $100 to swap tokens on Ethereum and you should be happy for the privilege to do that. No, not at all. Like, I've never stated that. People always take me the wrong way. All I'm saying and all I'm celebrating is the fact that, hey, we burned a lot of ETH. That's cool. I'm not celebrating the fact that users got priced out, and that's why I'm focused on the L2 ecosystem. But anyway, I'm not going to rant again about that. Last thing I wanted to talk about was that I spoke about Lobsters, I think, on the refill the other day. Well, they ended up raising a lot of ETH, and they're donating 1,000 ETH, which is $3.5 million at time of recording, to Coincenter. This is Coincenter's largest donation by far, and this is absolutely incredible. Like, I love this, honestly. Like, the fact that we've been able to kind of, I guess, harness the degeneracy of the NFT aping and donate $3.5 million to a lobbying body, which essentially is going to just bribe these politicians to be more favorable towards crypto. I know that Coincenter will never use the word bribe, but as I said yesterday, lobbying is literally just a fancy way of saying bribing. Anyone who's kind of like thinking otherwise is not thinking straight. But essentially, they're kind of like voting on it in this DAO here, but this 1,000 ETH I think is going to go to Coincenter, which is amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. As I said, largest donation they've ever seen, and I hope to see more of this kind of like happening within the ecosystem. But on that note, I'm going to end it there. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.